Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
Wasn't that lovely? Didn't you like that? You know, the quiet power of declaring and saying that from this point forward, things are going to be different around here, right? Things are going to be different. I've made a decision, and I'm staying with it, and I'm drawing a line, and I have a different attitude. I'm starting to do something different. That quiet power and that decision for quiet power comes as we access what it is that I want to bring to you tonight, which is the power of silence, and actually how to access it, and what it is, and maybe even more importantly, what it isn't. But first, I want to tell you, I think it's a cute story. My daughter was 8 years old, and she had learned how to play some handbells at church. Well, actually, it wasn't church. It was at school. She actually was in middle school, and it was a music magnet. And so she learned how to play handbells for a Christmas song. And so she came home, and she was all excited from her lesson, and she'd really kind of gotten it down. And so she went over to my husband, and she said, Dad, listen, can you tell what song this is? Bum, 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 bum. And of course, we couldn't do it, but you could tell there was music in her head, wasn't there? She could hear it. She could see notes on a page, I suspect. She knew just when her cues were and which bell she was playing. She was all ready because she was part of a lineup in a choir, so she had literally 2 notes to play in the whole song. So, yet, isn't that something that we can tune into something that isn't being picked up by our ears, that we can tune into something and try to transmit it without words, that there is something about us that is not about making words and not necessarily about the communication that we take for granted and that we think is ubiquitous, natural, and the only way that we communicate. That's not the case. There is an awareness and a sensation and a connection that we have with our lives that goes far beyond our capacity to put things into words. Words are a way in which we have come to actually, not for lack of trying, but have actually demean the experience that we can't otherwise express except through packages of sound and packages of words. We do it as close as we can with poetry and with metaphor and with storytelling. We do that. We try to communicate it that way. We do it in music. We do in the sounds, in the lyricism. It lifts our hearts. It brings us down. It takes us into a quiet place. It makes us want to celebrate, right? We can feel all the rush, and it communicates to us because we are energetic beings, and we vibrate at a variety of dimensions and a variety of levels. So we are actually receiving information, data, communication in ways that are so subtle and so powerful that a lot of times we just take it for granted. We may not even be aware of it. We just kind of feed it in, and we act from it unconsciously, and we just kind of take it in as being, this is the way things are, or this is how I am, or this is the way the world is. But when we start to cultivate a sensitivity about our surroundings, when we begin to cultivate a sensitivity about the vibrations in our own bodies, in our heart rate, in our breathing cycles, in the rhythms, and the flow of energy. Many of us, as we become meditators or as we become healers or attuned in yogic practices, for instance, Reiki practitioners, all kinds of ways in which we can learn to become conscious of the vibration in our bodies and the vibration of life that really flows through us. We can become attuned to it. And so when we sit and put our focus and pay attention to that, what happens is that we begin to be able to commune with it and even read it in some kind of a way about what's going on in our bodies and also how connected we are to the world around us. Because we then become sensitized to the way the world communicates, which is not in words and not always in sound, but often just in beauty and in form and in pattern and in lyrical, beautiful movements of air we call breeze or wind. There is something naturally healing for us to enter into the natural world and take our place there and to commune with it and be in spirit. The Nature Spirituality Day Retreat is a passion that I've been developing. It's a practice of mine, actually, over a long period of time for my own sake. I've spent the last, I'd say, 15 years consciously cultivating being in nature in such a way that I paid attention to the cycles of the moon, and I paid attention to when the different meteor showers would come through, because I lived in the hill country and I could actually come out on my driveway and see them. And so it was like watching natural fireworks, coming on. I just reveled in it. And in my home, I just had never had this experience. The moonlight came in through the window and swept across my pillow. I cannot tell you how magical I thought that was. Actually, I still do. Because I've lived in the city all my life, and the only lights that came in through the window were street lights. And they're not that exciting, actually. But moonlight is amazing. So I want to encourage you to consider cultivating, if you don't already have a practice, of moving out of places where words are necessary and begin to cultivate a place where you can be in silence. Now, all that means is dropping out of words. And you know how when we talk about meditation, where people complain to me, I've been meditating for a long time, but I just can't stop my thoughts. I'm like, no duh. Nobody can stop their thoughts. You don't pay any attention to them. You stop paying attention to them and you do something else. You pay attention to something else. And when you start paying attention to something else, you don't even know if you're having thoughts anymore. You're not having thoughts. You're paying attention to some other part of yourself, another part of the dynamism of your life. Or what I like to do is just simply step outside. If you step outside and start to notice what's going on outside, where there's trees and grass and birds and butterflies, and just choose to sit there, the amazing thing is that there is movement. There is a symphony. There is lyric, beautiful movement. And in that wordlessness, there is volumes being communicated that will come to you and through you, and it will restore your soul. Silent retreat for me was something that I practiced doing at the Senecal Retreat House. How many of you have ever been there? It got wiped out with Harvey, unfortunately. The sisters who took part in that still have a ministry, and they've relocated it, and so they're still able to do their work, and they still offer their support. They're amazing women. But the space itself was so powerful for me and so important. I spent a lot of time swinging in a hammock, and just watching. I didn't know, I forgot from childhood that butterflies do this around the trees. They chase each other. I saw that and I was like, I never noticed that, did I? Did I know they did that? I saw squirrels hopping and rabbits hopping over each other in the grass as dusk was going on, as they were searching for their last bugs for the evening meal, I think. Of course, they also had a resident peacock or two, which were amazing. I mean, who sees peacocks walking by all the time? But even without that, it was just beautiful blue sky, and I could watch a cloud. And I just kept watching it. I kept watching it. And when I woke up, because anytime we slow down long enough and get quiet enough, we're attuned to just power down and go to sleep. It's okay. Sometimes we need it. But it's also a sign of, our attention spans that need to be lengthened and to be able to really pay attention to what's going on in our lives, in our world. It doesn't mean that unless we are entertained and have a certain level of adrenaline, that somehow we're really supposed to be awake, and anything less than that, we're supposed to be asleep. No, we're supposed to be quiet and rejuvenated and bring things back and put it back into our souls where it belongs. This is who we are. We're energetic beings. We are natural beings, and we're communing with everything all the time, and it is communicating to us and seeking our awareness and our response to it. Did you know that? Here's what I like. Talks on Truth, Charles Fillmore wrote, "All power has its birth in the silence. There is no exception to this rule in all the evidence of life. Noise is the dying vibration of a spent force. All the clatter of visibility and the harangue of the politician to the thunder's roar is but evidence of exhausted power." Now, doesn't that put it in its place? Our words are our poor, meager way of communicating when we have forgotten how to look into each other's eyes. When we have forgotten to really listen and hear and pay attention, to really lean in, how to feel one another. This is really how we're created. There's so much more to us than meets the mouth, than is formed in words. And sitting in silence, wordlessness, and dropping your attention out of thought. And thought will always have a subject, a verb, and an object. It'll always make you want to get up and write a note. Oh, got to take care of that. Oh, I forgot to do. Oh, got to call somebody. Oh, that's the kind of thing that keeps us going, and that's the thing that you want to drop out of. And so what I do is to say, for right now, I will remember that later. If I remembered it now, I'll remember that later, and I'll just set it over there for right now. I just want to watch the cloud. I just want to watch that bird fly over to the feeder, do its business, and fly back. And I want to watch what comes next, and then watch something else, and watch something on the ground, and watch something over here, and notice that there's something growing there that I hadn't seen before, and then there's a butterfly. Butterfly. What kind of butterfly is that? Oh. And then after a while, what you do is you don't have words, but you have the sensation of being able to know what's going on behind you without looking. You have that capacity. You can sense energy. You can sense things that are happening in 360 around you. Why? Because you needed to know that at some point in the trajectory of survival. It isn't just what's going on in front of you. It's not just what can stand up and talk to you or growl in your face that matters. You need to know what's going on around you, and you have the capacity to know that. This is our birthright, our connection with all of life. And when we sit in quiet meditation, whether it's outside or whether it's in a chair in a holy place or in the room you've designated or anywhere at all that you need a little time to just be, in that moment you can feel the expanse of your soul stretching beyond your body and reaching out and breathing into it and sitting in the deep silence that is an entity unto itself. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is a fullness. It is a fullness of everything that's about to be created, of everything that will come out of the next moment, and the next moment, and the next moment. It all begins in silence. The Buddha said, if we could see the miracle of a single flower, our whole life would change. See? It's not just me who thinks that. The Buddha said that. William Blake, transcendentalist, one of the grandfathers of New Thought, to see a world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wildflower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. I would even say in a moment. When you disengage from time and place, when you tap into something deep and powerful and quiet, it renews you. Because you are not in time and place. You have a body for that, but you are not that. You are animating a body, but you are not confined to it or contained in it. You are a multidimensional being, and your focus and your attention and your ability to reach beyond that requires rejuvenation and renewal and time apart, and time alone, and above all, time in the silence. Mother Teresa said, the trees, the flowers, the plants, all grow in silence. The stars, the sun, the moon move in silence. Silence gives us a new perspective. Silence is the bedrock out of which everything else comes. It is actually how creation, our mythology or our belief about how creation began, started in the chaos, and it started in the emptiness. And out of it was, let there be light. Sound went out, and exploding creation took form. It was sent out as a form and has never stopped since. It continues to unfold. It continues to grow, continues to expand. It continues to diversify. It continues to be in existence, and we are a part of that. The creative word comes from silence, and all creation is set in motion. Aaron McPherson says, I sprawled out in the hammock hung from two giant oaks, just steps from the lake, and closed my eyes, soaking in the glory of the day. I think she was at the Cenacle. She said hammock, didn't she? I think that's where she was. Crickets chirped. A woodpecker rattled. I forgot about the woodpeckers. Tiny butterflies floated by on a breeze. Okay, they were moths, but they were still pretty. And the breeze was a bit chilly for my taste, and fleas bit my legs, reminding me that the great outdoors is called outdoors for a reason. And yet, still, this city girl who loves things like climate control and pest control, was finding something akin to, was it peace? Closing my eyes and taking in a deep breath of the country air, my heart cried out to God. Why is it so hard for me to just be like this? To let you fill my spirit with your word, your life, your hope, and peace. To listen to the quiet, still voice and know that you are God. And then it came like a whisper from one of the moth's wings. You don't let me. I had let my own thoughts interfere with this heaven. I had let those pesky fleas interrupt. I had let the chilly breeze steal my peace. Peace that God so clearly wants me to have. Do you see the process? Is that simple? You are surrounded by opportunity. You know why? Because we are living in an artificial belief system, in an artificial world that we have created to keep out the bugs and to keep out the humidity and the heat and to bring in some cool, fresh mountain air through the air conditioning system. We want to keep the illusion that we are in a constantly controlled environment and protected. And what we do, how many of us try to park as close as we can to the building so we have as little outdoor time as possible to hurry up and get to our car and start that baby? And if you have what I have, an automatic thing that lets me start my car, I can get the air conditioner going before I ever even touch the handle. I can do that. And you know what? I do that in Houston. I do. I'll just say that right up front. But why do we do that? Because we are so disconnected from the world in which we actually live in that would actually renew us and teach us and bring us a gift in those few short steps from building to car, from car to building, the ways in which we continuously try to avoid and protect ourselves, keep ourselves at a static temperature, protected from sweat, if at all possible. So our bodies get sick, and our bodies don't really know how to process all these things. But outside, we have a lot more going for us, a lot more healing, sitting in the sunshine, sitting in the shade and a breeze, drinking from a cool natural water, rainwater collected. All of the ways in which we could take advantage of the nature that's all around us. For thus says the Lord God, the Holy One of Israel, in returning and rest, you shall be saved. In quietness and trust shall be your strength. That's the teaching. That's the call. In quietness and trust, in returning and rest, in slovenly hanging out in a hammock in the middle of the day or in the morning or in the evening, or sitting on a bench and watching the sunset, or watching the stars come out, or a beautiful rainbow like we had yesterday while it was still raining as the sun was starting to set, and caught it at just the perfect angle. And I wondered if there was gold at the bottom, the other side of that tree. Oh yeah, that's right. I've never seen that before. I guess it isn't. There are so many magical things all around us that can change your life and connect you with wonder in your childhood. Franz Kafka says this: you don't even have to leave your room. That's what he says. Remain sitting at your table and listen. You need not even listen, simply wait. You need not even wait, just learn to become quiet and still and solitary, and the world will freely offer itself to you unmasked. It has no choice. It will roll in ecstasy at your feet. Why? Because you have eyes to see, and you haven't put your thinking cap on and made sense of everything around you. Instead, you have entered the childhood world of wonder and possibility and wordlessness. And before you had anything figured out, when anything could be anything, and it could turn into anything, and could come from anywhere, and it could be anything, and so could you. And look, you did become something. Psalm 95, for he is our God, and we are the people of his pasture and the sheep of his hand. Today, if you would hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. You see, God doesn't have to go up to the mountaintop and call down and speak in a booming voice to a select few, because God speaks in the rain and on the breeze and in the flutter of a butterfly and in the last breath and in the voice of a friend and the word of Scripture and in the still small voice when we become very, very quiet. So let us retreat to the silence, and from that silence, let us truly hear. Harden not your hearts. God bless you all.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.